This is the summary of Kiss the Villain Legacy of Gods by Rina Kent, summarized by Cellwave Audio and narrated by Bill. Disclaimer: this is an unofficial summary and analysis of Kiss the Villain by Rina Kent. It is not the original book and is not affiliated with or authorized by the author or publisher. This work is intended to provide key insights, analysis, and commentary for educational and informational purposes only. All names, trademarks, and references to the original content remain the property of their respective owners. Every effort has been made to ensure that this use is fair under Section 107 of the Copyright Act. Readers are encouraged to purchase the original book from the author or publisher for the full experience and context. Introduction. Kiss the Villain is not a typical love story. It unfolds at the crossroads of temptation and danger, where the line between right and wrong is not just blurred, but deliberately erased. At its heart are two men, one a law student with a carefully constructed golden image, the other his professor, a man who carries darkness like a second skin. What begins as chance and circumstance quickly spirals into a battle of power, desire, and revelation, leaving no room for innocence. The novel plays out like a psychological chess match. Gareth Carson, with his inherited privilege and his hidden appetite for chaos, meets Kayden Lockwood, the one man who recognizes the monster beneath Gareth's polished surface because he carries his own. Their entanglement is forbidden by every rule that governs academia and society. Yet the magnetic pull between them defies reason. Each interaction brims with tension, part attraction, part threat, as the boundaries that should protect them dissolve. This is a story about masks, about what people present to the world and what they bury deep inside. It challenges the reader to question where the villain truly lies: in the man who breaks the rules, in the one who hides his secrets, or in the quiet complicity of desire itself. Through shifting perspectives, the narrative lets us inhabit both Gareth and Kayden, making it impossible to draw neat lines between hero and villain, victim and predator, love and obsession. In this universe, passion is rarely gentle. It is sharp, consuming, and often dangerous. Yet within that danger lies a strange kind of intimacy, an admission that being truly seen, even in one's darkest moments, might be more terrifying than any act of betrayal. Kiss the Villain takes readers into that unsettling space and dares them to stay. Chapter 1. Gareth. Gareth Carson's life looks perfect from the outside. He is a law student with a sharp mind, a good name, and the kind of discipline people admire. Everyone around him sees the polished version, the golden heir who always knows what to do and how to act. But beneath that clean surface, Gareth is restless. He carries a hunger for something more dangerous, something that doesn't fit into the perfect life expected of him. His thoughts reveal how carefully he manages the image others see. Every smile, every answer in class, every step through the halls is calculated to protect his mask. Yet he feels the weight of it pressing down, because the real Gareth isn't calm or safe. He is drawn to chaos, tempted by the thrill of breaking rules, and there are nights when he lets himself slip into that darker space. It isn't a mistake or a weakness. It's a choice, and he can't deny how alive it makes him feel. The chapter builds a picture of a man caught between two sides of himself. On one hand, he plays the role of the model student and dutiful son, the person everyone trusts to carry his family's legacy. On the other hand, he carries impulses that make him unpredictable. He knows there's a danger in letting that hidden part show, but he also knows it won't stay hidden forever. In these opening moments, Gareth feels less like a figure of control and more like a fuse waiting for a flame. His confidence is real, but it comes from balancing on a thin edge, and the tension in his life is already starting to show. The mask he wears is flawless, but cracks are forming beneath it, and sooner or later, someone will see the truth he tries so hard to keep in the dark. Chapter 2. Gareth. The rhythm of Gareth's days is built on control. He knows how to keep people at arm's length, how to smile in a way that hides more than it shows. In this chapter, we see that he is not only carrying his family's expectations, but also managing the quiet storm inside himself. Every moment of calm feels borrowed, as if one wrong move might reveal the part of him that doesn't fit the golden boy image. He is polished, but beneath that polish is unrest. At school, Gareth moves through the halls like someone who belongs everywhere, yet feels settled nowhere. Classmates admire him, professors expect brilliance, and his family looks to him as a steady hand. But Gareth himself feels the cracks widening. He is drawn to risks most people would avoid, and it is in those risks that he feels most alive. He doesn't search for chaos because he has to. It's because he wants to, because it gives him a freedom nothing else can. There's a growing tension between the person Gareth pretends to be and the one he truly is. The neat, orderly student is almost a costume, and he knows it. He begins to notice how tiring it is to play the role so convincingly, and how much easier it would be to let the mask fall. That temptation creeps in more often now, whispering to him that he doesn't have to hold back, that maybe he doesn't even want to. What makes these moments powerful is how normal they appear on the outside. Gareth doesn't rage or explode. Instead, his rebellion shows in quiet choices, in the way he lingers too long on thoughts he shouldn't have, in the way he looks at the world with both calculation and hunger. He is watching, waiting, preparing for something to happen, though he may not know what that something is yet. The chapter leaves Gareth suspended between the life he's been trained to live and the life that pulls at him from the shadows. His confidence looks sharp, but it's heavy with secrets. He is a young man restless in his own skin, carrying the sense that the world he walks in daylight cannot hold him much longer. Chapter 3. Gareth. Gareth's restlessness deepens in this chapter, and the mask he wears grows heavier. He goes through his routine as the capable law student, but inside his thoughts are sharper, more chaotic, harder to control. The golden heir persona begins to feel like a cage, one that others admire, but he resents. Every expectation placed on him presses down like a weight, and the more he tries to ignore it, the more aware he becomes of the cracks spreading in his carefully built facade. The chapter explores Gareth's pull toward recklessness. He doesn't chase danger blindly, but he can't deny how it calls to him. Each act of rebellion is small on the surface, yet charged with meaning, like a secret signal to himself that he isn't as perfect as he appears. He notices how thrilling it is to cross invisible lines, to test the limits of what people believe about him. Those moments of release don't last long, but they give him a taste of the freedom he craves. Around him, the world remains oblivious. Professors still praise his discipline. Peers still see him as untouchable, and his family continues to believe in the image he's built. Only Gareth knows how thin that image has become. The contrast is striking, how everyone else sees a man in control, while he feels the ground shifting beneath him. His ability to keep both sides balanced becomes the real challenge, and it grows harder with each passing day. The writing draws attention to Gareth's inner dialogue, where two voices seem to fight for dominance. One insists he stay the course, remain the flawless student and heir. The other urges him to let go, to embrace the chaos that excites him more than any lecture or achievement ever could. This tension creates an unease that follows him into every scene, showing how much of Gareth's struggle is with himself, not the world around him. What stands out in this chapter is how close Gareth is to tipping over that edge. He doesn't yet know what moment will push him past the point of pretending, but the pull of that moment is already there. Every reckless thought, every secret thrill feels like a step toward someone or something that will finally match the darkness he hides. Gareth is no longer just wearing a mask. He is waiting for the day it slips off, and part of him already wants it to. Chapter 4. Gareth. This chapter sharpens the tension between Gareth's perfect image and his restless instincts. On the surface, nothing has changed. He remains the disciplined student, the admired heir, but the pull toward danger is stronger now, pressing at him in ways he can no longer ignore. The balance he's built begins to feel less like control and more like suffocation. Every polite exchange, every moment spent following the rules, only feeds the hunger for something reckless and raw. The writing lingers on Gareth's sense of isolation. He is surrounded by people yet feels completely unseen, because no one knows the truth about him. His classmates admire his brilliance, but they don't know about the storms in his mind. His family trusts his discipline, but they can't sense how close he is to breaking. Even in crowds, Gareth feels like he is standing apart, locked inside a cage of his own making. The loneliness of carrying that mask makes his desire for release burn hotter. We begin to see him lean further into the choices that allow him to feel alive. What once were small, private rebellions begin to take on a sharper edge. The thrill of risk lingers longer, and it's no longer enough to pretend those impulses don't exist. The more he feeds them, the more natural they feel, as if this side of him has been waiting patiently all along. Gareth realizes that danger doesn't just tempt him, it defines him in ways he is no longer able to deny. Yet he does not plunge blindly into chaos. His actions are measured, deliberate, even when they are reckless. It is this calculation that makes him both fascinating and dangerous. Gareth doesn't act without thought. He acts because he has thought, and because he wants to see what will happen when he steps over the line. That need for control within chaos is what makes him so different from the image others believe. The chapter closes with a growing sense that Gareth's carefully contained world is nearing a turning point. The mask he wears still holds, but only barely. Beneath it, the real Gareth is stirring, hungry, restless, and searching for the one collision that will finally strip away the illusion of perfection he has lived under for too long. Chapter 5. Kayden. The perspective shifts to Kayden Lockwood, Gareth's professor, and with it comes a darker, more unsettling atmosphere. Kayden is a man who carries authority easily, but it isn't the calm respect of a teacher. It's a sharp, watchful power that unsettles the air around him. His presence is magnetic, commanding attention even in silence. He is intelligent and deliberate, but beneath that careful exterior lies something far more dangerous, a current of menace that doesn't need to be spoken, to be felt. Through his eyes, the world looks colder, stripped of illusions. Kayden isn't interested in playing the part of the kindly mentor or the approachable guide. He views people through a lens of judgment, measuring them with a precision that can feel ruthless. For him, control is not only natural, but necessary, a weapon he wields as easily as language. In the classroom, every word and every silence is chosen to remind others that he is the one setting the rules. Beneath his professional surface, however, Kayden harbors his own shadows. His life is marked by secrets that linger just out of reach, pieces of a past that explain why his gaze feels heavier than it should. He isn't just a man of discipline. He is someone who understands the pull of darkness intimately. His authority comes not only from knowledge of the law, but also from a personal history steeped in lines crossed and boundaries broken. There's a sense that Kayden recognizes something in Gareth, even if he doesn't fully admit it. Their worlds are not meant to collide, yet his awareness of Gareth is sharper than it should be. It isn't the casual interest of a professor keeping track of a student. It's something deeper, a pull that mirrors Gareth's own hunger for chaos. In Kayden's presence, the balance Gareth clings to is threatened because Kayden is the kind of man who sees through masks with ease. The introduction of Kayden shifts the story into dangerous new territory. With his gaze fixed on Gareth, the tension becomes heavier, as if the collision between them is no longer a matter of chance, but inevitability. Chapter 6. Gareth. Gareth returns to the forefront, and the weight of his double life grows heavier. Outwardly, he is still the calm, brilliant student who meets expectations with ease. Inside, however, his thoughts are restless. Every routine feels stale, every polite exchange dull. He carries the sense that something is shifting around him, and it makes him more impatient than ever with the carefully constructed role he plays. The memory of Kayden lingers more than he wants to admit. Something is unsettling about the professor's presence, a sharpness that feels impossible to ignore. Gareth prides himself on control, yet in Kayden's company, control feels more like a performance. He catches himself thinking too much about the man who now stands at the front of his classroom, a man who seems to look past Gareth's polished mask with alarming ease. That recognition leaves Gareth both wary and strangely drawn in. As the chapter unfolds, Gareth's thoughts circle the tension between curiosity and caution. He knows that pursuing what Kayden represents would be reckless, but the pull is undeniable. Kayden isn't like the people Gareth has fooled for years. His gaze doesn't stop at the surface, it presses deeper, as if testing boundaries that Gareth himself has only recently begun to explore. The danger of being seen so clearly is real, yet the temptation of it is even greater. In his private moments, Gareth lets his darker impulses run freer. The desire for risk, for testing limits, rises each time he recalls the edges of Kayden's words and silences. He begins to imagine what it would mean to step closer instead of retreating, to let someone witness the chaos he usually hides. It's a thought that excites him as much as it unsettles him, a sign that his hunger for something more is beginning to outweigh his instinct for caution. Through Gareth's eyes, the story takes on a sharper edge of anticipation. The mask he wears is still in place, but the cracks are widening, and Kayden's presence is making it harder to ignore them. What was once a private hunger is starting to take on shape and direction, pulling him toward choices that could unravel everything he has built. Chapter 7. Gareth. Gareth begins to feel the shift inside himself more clearly. The careful rhythm of his days, study, discipline, and appearances no longer feels steady. His mind is too restless, circling back again and again to the tension he feels around Kayden. It isn't just attraction or curiosity, it's recognition. The unnerving sense that his professor sees a side of him that no one else does. That recognition leaves him unsettled, yet he can't stop chasing it in his thoughts. The balance Gareth maintains grows thinner. He is still the golden student in the eyes of others, but the act of wearing that mask takes more out of him. Every expectation, every glance of admiration from classmates or professors now feels hollow. What excites him is no longer praise or achievement, but the possibility of stepping outside the limits everyone believes he will follow. Kayden becomes the silent figure at the center of that possibility, a reminder that danger can be both real and irresistible. Inwardly, Gareth begins testing himself more. The risks he takes are subtle, but they reveal the thrill he draws from walking the edge. He notices how alive he feels in moments of secrecy, when he lets his darker thoughts guide him. It's not rebellion for its own sake. It's the taste of freedom, the knowledge that he can be more than the polished role carved out for him. The more he leans into that side, the harder it becomes to imagine turning back. What makes these moments sharper is Gareth's growing awareness that Kayden might share the same darkness. It is not spoken outright, but Gareth senses it in the professor's eyes. In the deliberate way, silence stretches between them. Instead of being cautious, this only feeds his curiosity. He wonders what it would mean to step closer, to see what happens if he drops the mask in front of someone who might already see through it. The unease of his double life is replaced with something else: anticipation. Gareth has always carried his hunger in secret, but now he finds himself standing on the edge of revealing it. The question no longer feels like whether he should resist, but when he will give in, and what will happen once he does. Chapter 8. Kayden. Kayden's perspective brings a heavier tone, one that sharpens the tension already circling Gareth's thoughts. He is a man who observes, measuring people with quiet precision. And in Gareth, he finds something unusual. Most students present only what he expects: ambition, eagerness, or insecurity. Gareth, however, carries an edge that cannot be overlooked. It isn't just intelligence or discipline. It's the flicker of something darker, something that mirrors Kayden's own hidden nature. Kayden does not approach the world with warmth or softness. His authority is cold, deliberate, and weighted with the kind of control that makes people take notice without being told to. Beneath that controlled exterior lies a mind that has walked paths others would fear to tread. He understands danger not as an idea, but as something lived, and he recognizes that same current pulsing in Gareth. What makes it unsettling is not only that Gareth hides it well, but that Kayden is tempted to uncover it. Their encounters in the classroom take on layers of unspoken challenge. Kayden's questions are sharper when directed at Gareth. His silence is heavier, his gaze too steady. It is not favoritism, nor is it simple curiosity. It is a deliberate test, as though he wants to see how long Gareth can keep his mask intact. The more Gareth resists, the more Kayden senses the cracks. In those cracks lies the truth, and Kayden cannot seem to turn away from it. At the same time, Kayden is not free of his own burdens. His past lingers like a shadow, shaping the man he has become. He knows what it means to make choices that cannot be undone, to live with secrets that would shatter others if exposed. In Gareth, he does not only see a student, he sees a reflection of himself, a younger version walking a path that feels all too familiar. That recognition draws him in, even as he knows it should push him away. The connection forming between them is far from simple. It is laced with risk, built on silence and glances that last too long. Kayden tells himself he is only observing, only watching. But beneath the surface, his control is shifting. Gareth is not just another student, and the pull between them is becoming something he can no longer ignore. Chapter 9. Gareth. Gareth's restlessness sharpens after every encounter with Kayden. The professor lingers in his thoughts long after class is over, his presence echoing like a challenge Gareth can't dismiss. What unsettles him most is not just Kayden's authority, but the sense that he sees too much. For years, Gareth has lived behind carefully crafted walls, but in Kayden's gaze, those walls feel fragile, as though they could collapse with the slightest push. That awareness feeds both his unease and his fascination. The life Gareth presents to others continues without interruption. He is still admired for his discipline, still respected for his sharp mind, and still playing the role everyone expects him to. Yet his focus is no longer on meeting those expectations. Instead, he measures each encounter with Kayden, replaying words, gestures, silences, and wondering what they reveal. The rest of the world fades into the background because nothing feels as sharp or as dangerous as being seen by the one man who should remain a distant figure of authority. Inside, Gareth begins to test himself more openly. He lets thoughts linger that he once would have pushed away, entertains impulses that carry the thrill of risk. Kayden becomes the center of that risk, the figure he can't stop circling in his mind. What draws him in is not just attraction, it's recognition. Kayden is not blind to Gareth's darkness, and instead of shrinking from it, he seems to study it, even provoke it. That makes Gareth feel alive in a way nothing else has. There is a sense of anticipation running through his every move. Each interaction with Kayden leaves Gareth more aware of how thin his mask has become. He can feel the edge he's standing on, sharp and dangerous, but instead of pulling back, he leans closer. The temptation is no longer about breaking rules for the sake of rebellion. It is about finding someone who might meet him in the shadows he has hidden for so long. Gareth doesn't admit it aloud, but the truth is clear in the way he thinks, watches, and waits. He is no longer satisfied with simply playing the golden boy. Kayden has unsettled something in him, and now he is caught between the image he has always worn and the darker self that wants to be revealed. The distance between those two selves is shrinking, and the collision feels inevitable. Chapter 10. Gareth. Gareth's inner struggle grows sharper, and it becomes clear how much Kayden has unsettled the rhythm of his life. He still maintains the polished surface, attentive in class, controlled in his movements, deliberate in how he speaks, but beneath that surface, his thoughts spiral in ways he can't control. Kayden's presence has become a constant echo, a reminder that the mask Gareth has worn so carefully is beginning to slip. Every exchange between them feels like a battle, though no words of war are spoken. When Kayden calls on him in class, Gareth feels the weight of those questions stretch far beyond the subject matter. They are not simply about the law or theory. They are tests, sharp probes designed to press against the part of him that others never see. For the first time, Gareth wonders if someone is not only aware of his darkness, but intent on pulling it out into the open. That thought is dangerous, but it thrills him in equal measure. Away from the classroom, Gareth wrestles with his impulses. He tells himself to stay in control, to resist what Kayden's gaze provokes in him, yet he finds himself slipping. His curiosity outweighs caution, his hunger outweighs discipline. The life he has kept so orderly begins to feel pointless without the risk, without the tension that Kayden brings. The golden boy mask no longer feels like protection. It feels like suffocation. The more Gareth reflects on Kayden, the more he realizes how much he wants to test the limits between them. His attraction is not simple, not even purely physical. It is something darker, rooted in the recognition that Kayden might understand him in ways no one else has. That understanding could ruin him, but it could also set him free. The danger lies in not knowing which way it will fall. The chapter leaves Gareth circling this dangerous pull, caught between fear and desire. He knows the stakes are high, that exposing himself could destroy the life he has built, yet the thought of keeping everything hidden feels unbearable. The tension is no longer whether Kayden sees him. It is whether Gareth is ready to let himself be seen. Chapter 11. Gareth. As the days pass, Gareth's internal conflict deepens, and the pressure of his dual life becomes impossible to ignore. He continues to play the role of the perfect student, the dutiful son, the accomplished heir, but the cracks in that image grow wider with each passing day. He feels it in the way his gaze drifts toward Kayden during lectures, in the way his thoughts return, unbidden, to the tension between them. Every moment of calm feels like an illusion now, and beneath the surface, Gareth is restless, caught in a tug-of-war between what he has always been and the person he is beginning to crave to be. Kayden is always on his mind. His presence in the classroom isn't just a disruption anymore. It's an invitation. Every word Kayden speaks, every glance he throws, feels like a silent challenge. The professor doesn't just observe Gareth, he engages him, drawing him into a game Gareth doesn't fully understand, but feels himself compelled to play. It's not just about control, it's about something far deeper. A connection that neither can name, but both seem to acknowledge. For the first time, Gareth finds himself unable to hide from it. The tension between them becomes more palpable outside of class as well. Gareth catches himself watching for Kayden when he doesn't need to, paying attention to the way his professor moves, the way he interacts with others. It's a small, almost obsessive pull, but it eats at Gareth, distracting him from everything else. The world he has kept in perfect order suddenly feels dull, disconnected from the dangerous, thrilling energy that Kayden brings into the room. He can feel it. This is not just attraction, not just curiosity. It is something darker, something both terrifying and irresistible. With each passing encounter, Gareth's awareness of the gap between who he is and who he is becoming grows sharper. He can't deny it any longer. Kayden represents the release Gareth has been searching for. In his presence, the mask falls away, not because Kayden demands it, but because Gareth can no longer hold it up. The control he's fought so hard to maintain is slipping, and he is starting to wonder if he even wants to keep it anymore. Gareth's desire to test the boundaries between them reaches a breaking point. He feels the pull to step closer to Kayden, to cross that line, but he's paralyzed by the risk. The consequences of such an action would be irreversible. And yet, the thought of continuing to live behind this mask is becoming unbearable. The tension between them, the slow, silent dance, is building to something neither of them can control. Gareth can feel it now. Something is going to change. He can't predict when or how, but he knows that once the mask slips, it will never fit back on. Chapter 12. Kayden. Kayden watches Gareth closely, and this time there is no distance between his observations and his growing fascination. The lines he once kept so carefully drawn in his professional life begin to blur, and he finds himself both intrigued and disturbed by how deeply Gareth pulls him in. It's not just the way the young man behaves in class or the way he answers questions. It's something else, something unspoken that hangs in the air between them, pulling at Kayden in ways he thought he had long mastered. Kayden has always been a man of control. His life is built on it, his reputation, his decisions, even the way he holds power over others. But with Gareth, control feels like something he is losing grasp of. There's something in the younger man's eyes, a vulnerability hidden beneath the bravado, that threatens Kayden's careful distance. The more he observes, the more Kayden senses a connection forming between them, not just of attraction, but of understanding. It is as if they are two sides of the same coin, each hiding parts of themselves that only the other can see. What disturbs Kayden more than anything is how much he wants to unravel the layers of Gareth's carefully constructed world. He's never been the kind of man to chase after anyone, not for the sake of affection or desire. But there is something about Gareth that feels different. It isn't just the way he challenges authority, it's the way he hides parts of himself so expertly, as if daring Kayden to find them. It's a game Kayden feels drawn into, even though he knows it's dangerous. As much as Kayden tries to remain detached, the tension between them builds. He cannot ignore it, cannot pretend that his own interest is not growing. But Kayden is not one to act without purpose. He watches, waits, and studies. His mind races with possibilities, weighing what it would mean to get closer to Gareth, to explore whatever connection simmers beneath the surface. Each glance, each word exchanged, feels like a thread being pulled tighter, a web Kayden is both weaving and caught in. In this chapter, we see the cracks in Kayden's own control. He is used to power, used to keeping things at a distance, but with Gareth, that power feels both like a lure and a risk. Kayden is becoming as much a part of the game as Gareth is, caught between his desire to control and his growing curiosity about the man who challenges everything he thought he understood about himself. Chapter 13. Gareth. Gareth's life, once so carefully organized, begins to feel more like a facade with every passing day. The tension between who he is on the outside and who he is beginning to show inside grows harder to manage. He still plays the role of the perfect student, respectful, disciplined, unflinching in his ambition. But his thoughts are no longer just about the next assignment or the next class. They circle back to Kayden, to the tension that simmers in the air between them, to the unspoken challenge in the professor's gaze. It isn't just that Kayden sees him differently, it's that he recognizes the parts of Gareth he has spent years keeping hidden. No one else has looked at him the way Kayden does, with that sharpness, that awareness. It makes Gareth feel exposed, raw, and at the same time more alive than he's felt in ages. He knows it's dangerous to let this pull grow stronger, to allow himself to be seen in ways he's never allowed anyone to look before. But the more he resists, the more the temptation grows. Gareth's restlessness intensifies, seeping into every part of his day. He becomes more reckless, not in the ways that are visible to others, but in the deeply personal ways. He stops hiding parts of himself from his own reflection, his darker desires, his hunger for something that isn't just perfect, but real. The mask he's worn for so long is slipping, and the man underneath is beginning to step forward, no longer content to stay in the shadows. The attraction to Kayden feels like a magnet pulling him closer, and every time they interact, the pull becomes stronger. Gareth knows that if he allows himself to lean into it, to give in to the strange connection between them, everything he's worked for, the image of the perfect student, the perfect heir, could shatter. And yet, the idea of continuing to live a life where everything is controlled and managed feels suffocating. He begins to wonder if the price of freedom is worth the cost of losing everything he's built. The more Gareth thinks about Kayden, the more he recognizes that their lives are starting to mirror each other. Both of them are playing roles, both hiding parts of themselves that could destroy everything if revealed. The question is no longer whether he will cross the line, but when, and what will happen once he does. The closer they get, the more dangerous it becomes, but Gareth can't stop himself. The game has already started, and now he's playing to win, even if he's not sure what the prize will be. Chapter 14. Gareth. Gareth is no longer simply restless. He is consumed by the space Kayden occupies in his thoughts. It feels as if every part of his life, every interaction with others, is now measured against the pull of this forbidden connection. The contrast between his public life and his private urges becomes harder to ignore, and the cracks in the perfect image he's carefully built begin to widen. The golden boy of the classroom, the well-mannered heir, is slipping away, replaced by someone who is both terrified and exhilarated by the desire to finally be seen for who he really is. There's a hunger in him now, something that goes beyond curiosity or attraction. It is the deep need to cross the boundary that Kayden has unknowingly set. It's a line that has always existed, separating the parts of himself he's allowed the world to see from the darker, unspoken parts he's hidden so carefully. Each interaction with Kayden chips away at that line, drawing him closer to the edge of revealing everything. Gareth knows what the cost will be, yet the more he tries to resist, the stronger the pull becomes. In his moments of solitude, Gareth wrestles with the truth of what he's feeling. His desire for Kayden isn't just about being seen. It's about the possibility of being understood. Kayden isn't like the others. He doesn't need to ask questions to know there's more to Gareth than what he presents. And that recognition, dangerous as it is, feels like both a release and a prison. Gareth wants to give in, wants to let someone in, but the fear of what will happen when that mask finally falls keeps him locked in place. The dynamic between them shifts subtly, though neither acknowledges it openly. Gareth feels Kayden's gaze more keenly, as if every look is both a test and an invitation. It's not enough for Kayden to simply see him. He seems to be pushing him, drawing him out in ways Gareth doesn't fully understand. And as much as he tries to keep his distance, Gareth realizes that he is no longer merely a spectator in this dangerous dance. He is being pulled in, willingly or not, and the question of whether he will step over the line becomes less about if and more about when. There is a strange comfort in this, a relief in the knowledge that the game between them has already begun. But it's also terrifying. The more Gareth allows himself to acknowledge this connection, the more he realizes that it is changing everything. The mask he once relied on no longer fits, and the man beneath it is both who he is and someone he doesn't fully understand yet. The tension between them is no longer just about desire. It's about revelation, about what happens when two people are forced to face the truth about who they really are. Chapter 15. Kayden. Kayden senses the shift before Gareth even realizes it. There's a quiet change in the way the young man moves, in the way his gaze lingers, in the subtle hesitation that wasn't there before. For all of Gareth's outward composure, Kayden sees the cracks forming, and with each passing day, they become harder to ignore. Gareth is no longer just a student in his class. He is a puzzle that Kayden can't stop trying to solve. The attraction is undeniable, but it is something far more complex than physical desire. There's an understanding between them, something unspoken, something that Kayden knows could pull them both into dangerous territory. In his moments of observation, Kayden feels the pull toward Gareth growing stronger. It's not just about control or power, it's about recognition. Gareth, like him, carries darkness, though it's hidden more carefully. There's a hunger in him, a need to break free from the mask he wears, and Kayden can see it in the way he carries himself, in the way his restraint cracks under the pressure of his own desires. Kayden has been in that place before, and it draws him in, as if Gareth's struggle mirrors his own past. But Kayden is not the type to rush. He's always been someone who watches and waits, and in Gareth, he sees both the temptation to push further and the risk of doing so. Every glance, every word exchanged, feels like a test. He wants to know how far Gareth is willing to go, how much of himself he's ready to reveal. Kayden knows what it means to lose control, but he's never been willing to let anyone else see it. Not until now. And the more he watches Gareth struggle with his own boundaries, the more Kayden wonders if he is meant to be the one to push those boundaries further. The dynamic between them is shifting, becoming more than just student and professor. There's something charged in the air, something electric that neither can ignore. Kayden feels it in the way his thoughts stray to Gareth, in the way his attention sharpens whenever he enters the room. It's not just fascination. It's a kind of pull, something that threatens to drag them both into a territory neither is fully prepared to navigate. Kayden, who has always been in control, finds himself questioning the next move. The game between them is no longer just about power. It's about connection, about seeing someone for who they really are and wondering what happens when those walls come down. He has never been one to share his own darkness, but in Gareth, he sees the potential for something deeper, something dangerous, and for the first time, he wonders if it's worth the risk to cross that line. Chapter 16. Gareth. The pull between Gareth and Kayden is no longer something he can ignore. Every day it grows stronger, more consuming. He tries to go through the motions, attending class, answering questions, maintaining the illusion of control, but it's becoming harder to focus on anything other than Kayden. Each glance, each subtle interaction feels like a thread being tugged, pulling him closer to something he knows he should avoid, but can't seem to resist. Gareth's thoughts spiral when he's alone. He feels like he's walking a tightrope, teetering between who he's always been and who he's starting to become. There's no denying the attraction to Kayden, but it's more than that. It's a recognition, a mirror of something dark inside him that he has spent years trying to keep hidden. And now, with Kayden watching him so intently, it's as if all the parts of himself that he's buried are coming to the surface. In class, Gareth catches himself looking at Kayden more often than he should. Their interactions, once casual, are now loaded with tension, with unspoken things hanging in the air between them. He feels exposed in a way he never has before, but it's not the kind of exposure that makes him want to hide. It's the kind that draws him in, makes him want to take the risk and see what happens if he lets down the walls he's spent years building. Gareth knows what he's risking. He's always been good at maintaining control, at keeping his desires locked away where no one can see them. But with Kayden, control doesn't feel like safety anymore. It feels like a cage. He's tired of playing the part of the perfect student, of the perfect heir, and Kayden is the only one who seems to see through the mask. That recognition, that understanding, is both terrifying and intoxicating. The closer he gets to Kayden, the more the tension between them becomes unbearable. Every glance, every word feels charged, as if they are both standing on the edge of something, waiting for the other to make the first move. Gareth knows that once he crosses that line, there's no going back. And yet, the thought of turning away, of going back to the life he's always known, feels like suffocation. The only thing that feels real now is the dangerous, raw connection between him and Kayden, and he's starting to wonder if he's willing to give it all up for a chance to finally be free. Chapter 17. Gareth. The tension between Gareth and Kayden has reached a point where every moment feels charged, as if the air around them hums with unspoken words. Gareth's restraint, once his greatest strength, is starting to break. He can no longer deny how much Kayden pulls at him, how his presence fills every space, every thought. It's no longer about just being seen or understood. It's about needing something raw, something real, that he's never allowed himself to fully grasp before. Gareth catches himself in moments when his thoughts stray too far. He's supposed to be focusing on his future, on his success, but all he can think about is the way Kayden's eyes seem to follow him, the quiet tension in the professor's words. There's something magnetic about it. the way Kayden challenges him, pushes him to confront parts of himself that have remained hidden for so long. It's a dangerous game, but it's one Gareth is starting to play willingly, drawn in by the intensity of the pull between them. Every day, the walls he's built around himself feel less like protection and more like a cage. The perfect heir, the dutiful student, those roles feel less fitting with each passing moment. Kayden is the only person who sees beyond the facade, and that makes Gareth want to expose more, to let the mask fall completely. But the fear of losing everything, of having his carefully constructed life crumble, still lingers in the back of his mind. The risk is real, and the consequences are unknown, but the temptation to step into the unknown is growing stronger. As he watches Kayden from across the room, Gareth can feel the distance between them closing. It's not just the physical proximity that's changing, it's the emotional and psychological space between them. Kayden's presence no longer feels like a distant authority figure, but like something that anchors Gareth to a truth he can no longer ignore. There is no going back now. Every glance, every word, feels like a question, a challenge. And Gareth is no longer sure if he wants to resist. The mask is slipping faster now, and Gareth is beginning to wonder if he's ready to face what's underneath. He's spent so long pretending to be someone he's not, trying to be the person everyone expects him to be. But in Kayden's presence, he is forced to confront the parts of himself he's hidden, the dark, messy, real parts that he's kept buried. And for the first time, he wonders if those parts might finally be the key to freedom, to something more than the perfect image he's built for himself. Chapter 18. Gareth. Every moment spent in Kayden's presence now feels like a test, a trial that is both thrilling and terrifying. Gareth is no longer sure where the line between attraction and obsession lies. He can't stop thinking about the way Kayden watches him, the way he listens with a depth that feels unnerving and intimate. It's as if Kayden is peeling away the layers Gareth has worked so hard to protect, and each glance, each subtle word feels like an invitation to let go of everything he's ever held back. Gareth is caught in a war between his desire to keep control and his growing need to surrender to the tension between them. The mask he's worn for so long feels heavier now, less convincing. The rules he's always lived by, the ones that have kept him safe, now feel like chains. And Kayden is the one man who seems to see that, to see right through the polished image to the raw, untamed parts of him that are begging to be let loose. The more he tries to resist, the more Gareth realizes that resistance is futile. Every time he looks at Kayden, there's a magnetic pull that draws him closer, and each step forward feels like a slip into the unknown. He begins to recognize that the life he's worked so hard to maintain, this perfect, controlled existence, is not what he truly wants. Kayden represents something else, something darker and more real. And as much as Gareth wants to stay safe, he can't help but reach for it. In this chapter, the tension reaches a boiling point. Gareth knows that if he crosses this line, there's no going back. The carefully crafted life he's built will shatter, and he'll be forced to confront the parts of himself he's kept hidden for so long. But the more he thinks about it, the more he realizes that he is no longer afraid of that loss. The fear of losing control is nothing compared to the fear of never allowing himself to truly feel, to truly be seen. And Kayden, for all the danger he represents, is the only person who has ever made Gareth feel alive in this way. Gareth's struggle becomes less about what he stands to lose, and more about what he stands to gain. He is no longer playing the role of the golden boy, the perfect student. With Kayden, he is forced to confront the real man beneath the mask, the man who has desires and fears, imperfections and strengths, and is willing to face them all for the chance to finally be free. The pull between them is undeniable, and the question no longer is whether Gareth will cross the line, but when he will, and what will happen once he does. Chapter 19. Kayden. Kayden has always been a man of control, but with Gareth, that control feels slippery, like sand slipping through his fingers. The pull between them has become undeniable, and as much as he tries to maintain his usual distance, Kayden can feel himself drawn in. It's not just Gareth's obvious intelligence or charm. There's something more primal in the way their interactions have escalated. Every glance, every pause between their words is charged with an energy that Kayden has never fully allowed himself to acknowledge. But now, it's impossible to ignore. Kayden knows better than to get entangled in a student's life. He's been down that road before, and he knows the dangers of letting personal feelings interfere with professional boundaries. But with Gareth, those boundaries are becoming harder to uphold. There's a quiet challenge in Gareth's eyes, a recognition of something Kayden thought he had buried. It isn't just about control anymore, it's about connection. And that is something Kayden hasn't allowed himself to want in a long time. Every time Gareth steps closer, whether in words or silence, Kayden feels the walls he's so carefully constructed begin to crumble. He's been in control for so long that the idea of letting go feels both terrifying and freeing. There's something in Gareth's struggle that mirrors his own past, the desire to be seen, to be understood in ways that go beyond the surface. Kayden knows that once they step over this line, there's no returning to the way things were. The dynamic between them will change, and both of them will be forced to face the consequences. But even with the weight of that knowledge, Kayden can't help but be drawn in. There's a quiet hunger in Gareth that resonates with him, a desire for something real, something raw, that Kayden himself understands too well. It's dangerous, reckless even, but it's also the only thing that feels real. The connection they share isn't just physical, it's psychological, emotional, and for both of them, it's terrifying. But the more Kayden watches Gareth struggle, the more he realizes that this is not a temptation he can ignore any longer. Kayden's past has always been his shield, his excuse for keeping people at arm's length. But Gareth is different. There's something in the way he challenges Kayden, something in the way he refuses to stay in the safe, expected roles that everyone else assigns him. It makes Kayden want to reach out, to pull him closer, and to see what happens when they finally give in to the undeniable tension between them. But with that desire comes a fear he's never quite known before, the fear of losing control, of letting something slip that he can't take back. Chapter 20. Gareth. Gareth knows he is standing on the edge of something monumental, something that will change everything. He can feel the pull of it in every glance from Kayden, every word that lingers between them. There is no more pretending, no more hiding behind the mask he's worn so carefully for years. The parts of him he's kept locked away are starting to break free, and it's all because of Kayden. Every moment they share, every quiet, charged interaction, brings him closer to the truth he's been avoiding. The temptation to step over that line is unbearable now. Gareth isn't just drawn to Kayden's dominance, his control. It's something deeper, something that feels like a mirror to his own hunger. Kayden sees him in ways no one else has, recognizes the darkness within him that he's kept hidden for so long. It's as if the two of them are circling the same truth, each afraid to be the first to speak it, but both knowing that once the words are said, there will be no going back. In his solitude, Gareth finds himself imagining what it would be like to finally let go, to stop hiding, to stop controlling, and just let himself be seen. It's a terrifying thought, but also one that makes him feel more alive than he has in years. Kayden represents something he's always wanted, but never allowed himself to fully embrace. The raw, unfiltered part of himself that doesn't need to hide behind a perfect facade. The freedom to be real, to be whole, without worrying about the consequences. And yet, the fear of losing everything still holds him back. He's built a life, a reputation, an identity. And if he crosses this line with Kayden, all of that will be exposed. There is no way to go back to being the person he once was. But the more Gareth wrestles with that fear, the more he realizes that he doesn't want to go back. He's tired of playing the role. He's tired of pretending. What draws him to Kayden is not just the danger, but the promise of something deeper, something that would finally make him feel whole. The tension between them reaches its breaking point. Gareth knows that he can no longer keep resisting the pull. The truth of who he really is, the parts he's kept hidden for so long, are starting to break through the walls he's built. Kayden is the only one who has ever seen through those walls, and the more Gareth thinks about it, the more he realizes that he doesn't want to hide anymore. He's ready to step into the unknown, to face whatever comes next, even if it means losing everything. Chapter 21. Gareth. Gareth feels the weight of his choices pressing down on him. The certainty he once had about who he was and where he was headed begins to feel fragile. Kayden is no longer just a figure in his life. He's become a catalyst for everything Gareth has spent years trying to suppress. Every conversation, every look, every silent moment shared between them chips away at the walls that have kept Gareth safe in his carefully controlled existence. He finds himself drawn to the idea of giving in, of letting go of the control that has defined him for so long. There's a part of him that yearns for the freedom to be vulnerable, to expose the parts of himself that have always been hidden. And yet, there's a constant tug of war in his mind. The fear of what he stands to lose, his reputation, his family's trust, the image of perfection he's built, keeps him on edge, holding him back from crossing the line with Kayden. But the more Gareth wrestles with that fear, the more he realizes that it's the fear itself that has kept him trapped. What would it feel like to stop pretending? To let someone else see the real him, the parts that have never had a place in the world he's built? The thought excites him in ways he never expected. Kayden doesn't ask him to be perfect. He doesn't even need him to be controlled. And in that, there's a strange kind of liberation. A freedom that Gareth never knew he wanted, but now finds himself desperate for. As the days pass, the pull between them becomes undeniable. Every interaction with Kayden feels more like a reckoning. It's no longer about playing games or maintaining control. It's about the raw reality of what happens when two people who have lived in the shadows finally meet. Gareth realizes he's standing on the edge of something monumental, something that could break him open or set him free. There's no more pretending, no more keeping up the act. Kayden has seen him in ways no one else ever has, and now Gareth has to decide whether he's ready to let it all go. Chapter 22. Kayden. Kayden watches Gareth with an intensity that goes beyond curiosity. There's something in the way the young man holds himself, in the careful balance he maintains, that draws him in. Every glance, every word exchanged, has become more loaded, more significant. It's no longer just a game of control. It's something deeper, something Kayden hasn't allowed himself to acknowledge until now. He sees the way Gareth struggles, the cracks in his carefully constructed world, and it makes him wonder if they're not so different after all. Kayden has always prided himself on his ability to maintain distance, to never let emotions cloud his judgment. But with Gareth, it's different. The lines he's drawn between himself and his students blur the longer they interact. He senses the quiet desperation in Gareth's eyes, the way he fights to keep the mask in place, while clearly yearning to let it fall. Kayden knows that feeling, that need to be seen, to be understood without judgment, and it stirs something in him that he's worked hard to bury. The power dynamics between them shift subtly but unmistakably. Kayden finds himself letting his guard down in ways he hasn't before. He is drawn to Gareth's vulnerability, to the parts of him that remain hidden and yet so visible in the way he carries himself. There's a hunger in Gareth, a raw desire to break free from the constraints he's built around himself, and Kayden can't help but wonder if he's the one who will push him to finally give in. But Kayden isn't without his own fears. He's always kept his distance, always controlled his emotions to avoid getting entangled with anyone. He's seen what happens when you allow someone to get too close, and he knows the dangers of losing control. But with Gareth, that control is slipping, and Kayden feels himself standing at a precipice, unsure of whether to step back or let himself fall. The struggle between what he wants and what he fears grows stronger with every passing day. He knows that pushing Gareth could shatter the boundaries they've both tried so hard to maintain. But he also knows that the attraction between them is undeniable, and the pull is something neither can ignore. The question now is not whether they will give in, but what happens once they do, and if they're both ready for the consequences. Chapter 23. Kayden. Kayden feels the shift in the air between them, and it's almost unbearable. The distance he's always maintained, the invisible line that has kept him in control, seems to be fading. He knows it, feels it in the way Gareth looks at him, the way his presence seems to fill every space between them. Kayden has always prided himself on his ability to hold back, to remain untouched by the pull of others' emotions. But with Gareth, that control is slipping away, and for the first time in a long time, Kayden is unsure if he wants to hold on to it. There's a quiet desperation in Gareth, a rawness that Kayden can no longer ignore. He sees it in the way the younger man walks into the room, the way his eyes linger on Kayden longer than necessary, as if silently begging for something neither of them is willing to name. Kayden knows that look. It's a reflection of his own desire, something he has spent years suppressing. And yet, with Gareth, it feels different, more urgent, more dangerous. Every interaction between them is a test now. Kayden feels himself pulling closer to the edge, to a place he's never allowed himself to go. He has always been in control, the one who sets the rules, who makes the decisions. But with Gareth, it's as though the roles are reversing. The young man challenges him in ways he didn't expect. His presence makes Kayden question everything he's believed about control, about power, about connection. The internal conflict Kayden feels is palpable. He wants to reach out, to close the gap that has been growing between them, but the fear of losing everything holds him back. He's seen the consequences of giving in before, the price of letting someone too close. He knows that once they cross this line, there's no turning back. The consequences could be devastating. But as he watches Gareth struggle, as he feels the weight of their shared desire, Kayden realizes that the cost of not giving in might be just as great. The closer they get, the more Kayden realizes how much he needs this, how much he craves the raw, unfiltered connection that Gareth offers. It's not just about power anymore. It's about the vulnerability they both share, the parts of themselves they've kept hidden for so long. And as they move toward the inevitable, Kayden knows that whatever happens next will change both of them in ways they can't yet understand. Chapter 24. Gareth. Gareth can no longer deny it. His world is shifting, and he is falling, willingly, into the pull of something he's tried to keep at arm's length. The control he once prided himself on feels fragile now, like a brittle facade that could break at any moment. Kayden's presence looms larger every day, and the more Gareth tries to resist, the more he feels himself drawn to the professor in ways he never imagined. He spent so much time pretending to be the perfect student, the perfect son, the perfect heir. But all those layers feel increasingly meaningless. Kayden sees him, truly sees him, and in that gaze, Gareth feels both exposed and liberated. It's not just about attraction or the desire to break free. It's about recognition, the understanding that someone else knows him, knows the parts of himself he's hidden away, and is willing to push him further, even if it means shattering everything. The weight of the decision bears down on him. With each passing moment, Gareth realizes that he can't continue living in two worlds. The mask he's worn for so long, the one that shields him from the truth of his desires, is slipping away. The more he interacts with Kayden, the more he feels the desire to let it fall, to let Kayden see everything he's kept buried. But there's fear in that too. The fear of what he stands to lose if he allows himself to be fully exposed, to be seen for who he truly is. In the quiet moments, when he's alone with his thoughts, Gareth wonders what would happen if he gave in. What would it feel like to stop pretending, to stop hiding behind the walls he's built around himself? Kayden represents the freedom to be real, to be raw, and the thought of that freedom stirs something deep inside him. The only thing holding him back now is the fear of what that freedom might cost. Yet, despite that fear, Gareth knows he is on the verge of crossing a line. The moment is coming, and when it happens, nothing will be the same. He feels the pull toward Kayden growing stronger, the desire to let go of everything he's tried to control. The question is no longer whether he will give in, it's when and what will happen once he does. 25. Gareth. Gareth feels the weight of his own decision pressing on him, a heaviness that threatens to collapse the carefully constructed world he's spent years building. The perfection he's clung to, his identity as the golden student, the dutiful heir, is becoming harder to maintain. Kayden is no longer a distant figure. He has become a mirror, reflecting parts of Gareth that have remained hidden for so long. And in those reflections, Gareth sees the parts of himself he's always feared. Every glance at Kayden feels charged now. It's not just the attraction that pulls at him, it's the understanding, the recognition that Kayden sees through the layers Gareth has carefully stacked to protect himself. With each encounter, the tension grows, an invisible thread connecting them, tightening with every word, every shared silence. It's a dangerous game, but one Gareth finds himself playing willingly. He knows that once they cross that line, there's no going back. And yet, the thought of staying in his perfectly controlled life feels like suffocation. As the weight of the decision looms larger, Gareth finds himself at a crossroads. There's no pretending anymore. Kayden is no longer just a professor. He's become an undeniable force in Gareth's life, pushing him to confront truths he's tried to avoid. The fear of losing everything, the family, the reputation, the identity, still lingers, but it's not enough to hold him back. The more he thinks about it, the more he realizes that the life he's been living has never truly been his. It's been a role, a performance, and Kayden is the one who is forcing him to step out of it. Gareth doesn't know what will happen when they finally cross this line. He doesn't know how far Kayden is willing to push him, or what the consequences will be once the mask slips. But, for the first time, he's ready to find out. The pull toward Kayden is undeniable, and as much as he tries to resist it, Gareth knows that his life is about to change in ways he can't predict. The only question now is whether he will have the courage to embrace the freedom that comes with stepping into the unknown. 26. Kayden. Kayden feels the shift in Gareth more acutely now. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but it's there. The wall Gareth has so carefully built around himself is beginning to crack, and with each passing moment, Kayden can sense the younger man's struggle. There's a vulnerability in Gareth that he hasn't shown before, a rawness that is impossible to ignore. It's in the way his gaze lingers just a moment too long, the way he speaks with an edge of uncertainty Kayden has never heard from him. Kayden has always been in control, the one who dictates the rules and knows how to maintain distance. But with Gareth, the lines are blurring. He recognizes that the attraction between them isn't just physical, it's psychological and emotional. There's a connection forming that neither of them can deny, though neither is willing to fully embrace it yet. Kayden has seen the power of control, the way it can shape a person's actions and thoughts, but he also knows what it's like to let go, to surrender to the pull of desire. And for the first time in a long time, Kayden wonders if he's willing to cross that line. His thoughts are conflicted. On one hand, he has always prided himself on maintaining authority, keeping distance between himself and the people around him. But with Gareth, it's different. There's a pull toward the darkness they both carry, an understanding that goes beyond words. Kayden can't shake the feeling that Gareth is offering something he's longed for, a raw, honest connection, free from pretense. And yet, the consequences of letting that connection grow are not lost on him. He knows that once they step over this threshold, there's no going back. Kayden tries to keep himself detached, to remind himself that this is a student, a relationship that should remain professional. But it's becoming harder to ignore the magnetic pull between them. Every glance, every touch, feels like a test of restraint. Kayden finds himself wondering what will happen if he lets go, if he allows himself to be pulled into this whirlwind with Gareth. The risk is high, but the temptation is even greater. As the distance between them closes, Kayden is left with a question he has never had to answer before. How much control is he willing to lose for the chance to experience something real, something unfiltered? The decision weighs on him, but deep down, he knows that once this door is opened, they both will be stepping into a world of uncertainty, a world where nothing is predictable and everything has consequences. Chapter 27. Gareth. Gareth feels as if he is being pulled deeper into a world he never fully understood until now. The mask he's worn for so long is no longer just uncomfortable. It's suffocating. Every day that passes, every moment he spends around Kayden, he feels the walls he's built around himself start to collapse. There's no pretending anymore, no safe distance between the life he's been living and the life he's beginning to crave. The reality of it is terrifying, but it's also the only thing that feels real now. Every glance from Kayden is a reminder of what's at stake, and yet Gareth can't pull away. The closer he gets to the professor, the more he realizes how little of himself he's ever allowed to be seen. Kayden sees beyond the surface, past the perfect student and the perfect heir, into the darkness that Gareth has tried to hide. And instead of turning away, Kayden seems to embrace it. That understanding, that recognition, draws Gareth in like a magnet. The battle inside Gareth is more intense than ever. He feels the desire to give in, to finally step into the freedom Kayden offers, but there's still a part of him that holds back. The fear of losing everything, of shattering the life he's worked so hard to build, grips him. He spent so many years pretending, playing the part, and the thought of letting that go is almost unbearable. But the more he thinks about it, the more he realizes that the life he's been living hasn't been his own. It's been a performance, a role he's played for others, but it's never truly been who he is. What draws him to Kayden isn't just the power, the attraction, or the dangerous pull between them. It's the possibility of being free, of being seen for who he truly is. And that possibility feels like both liberation and destruction. Gareth knows that once he steps into this new reality, once he lets go of the mask, there's no turning back. The life he's known will be gone, and everything he's built will come crashing down. But in the deepest parts of himself, Gareth realizes that he is ready for it. The question no longer is whether he will give in. It's when. The moment is approaching, and Gareth feels the weight of it in every part of his being. He knows what he stands to lose, but for the first time, he wonders if what he stands to gain is worth it. The pull of Kayden, of the truth between them, is too strong to ignore, and Gareth knows that once he steps over that line, nothing will ever be the same. Chapter 28. Gareth. Gareth is on the edge, and he can feel it in every part of himself. The line he's been walking for so long is blurring, disappearing entirely, and there's no longer any room for hesitation. With each passing moment, he feels more connected to the raw, untamed version of himself that has always been just beneath the surface. Kayden, unknowingly or not, has been the catalyst for this change, and Gareth is beginning to realize that there is no turning back. For years, Gareth has been the perfect student, the dutiful son, the golden boy. His life has been a carefully crafted performance, one that kept others at a distance and allowed him to control how he was seen. But now, with every glance exchanged with Kayden, every word spoken, that mask is slipping. The more he tries to hold on to the identity he's built, the more it slips through his fingers like sand. And it feels oddly freeing. There's a part of him that resents Kayden for seeing through him, for recognizing the darkness and the hunger he's spent so much time hiding. But there's also a part of him that's drawn to it, to the way Kayden makes him feel understood in a way no one else has. Gareth's mind is a storm of confusion and longing, a constant battle between the fear of losing control and the desire to finally be seen for who he truly is. He spent so long trying to keep his desires buried, trying to play the role of the perfect, unshakable heir. But Kayden has cracked that image open, piece by piece, and now Gareth is standing at the threshold of something he's never allowed himself to explore. The temptation to give in, to embrace what's between them, feels overwhelming. But the cost of that temptation still lingers in the back of his mind, the fear of everything falling apart if he crosses that line. Yet as much as he tries to resist, Gareth knows he's already made the choice. He's already moving toward Kayden, drawn in by the raw honesty that exists between them. The fear, the uncertainty, the risk of losing everything, it no longer matters. The pull between them is too strong, and Gareth feels himself giving in, step by step, to the possibility of something real, something true, and something terrifying. Chapter 29. Kayden. Kayden watches Gareth with a mixture of fascination and wariness. He's always been able to maintain distance, control the situation, and keep things professional, But with Gareth, the lines are blurring. He's not used to feeling this drawn to someone, not in the way he feels about the young man before him. Gareth challenges him, pulls at him in ways that neither of them can quite articulate, but it's undeniable. The attraction is dangerous, and yet it feels like it's pulling them both in the same direction. A place neither is sure they're ready for, but both are compelled to reach. Kayden's world has always been about boundaries, about control. But with Gareth, those boundaries are slipping, and it unsettles him more than he's willing to admit. There's something about the way Gareth opens up, just a little, just enough to let Kayden see the cracks beneath his perfect facade, that makes him want to push harder. There's darkness in Gareth, a hunger that matches his own, and Kayden feels the urge to draw it out, to see just how far it goes. Yet, in the back of his mind, Kayden knows this isn't just a game anymore. He's been careful, calculating all his life. But with Gareth, there's something different. There's a vulnerability in him that Kayden hasn't seen in anyone in a long time. A need for connection, for someone to see him fully, the way Kayden now sees him. It's terrifying in its rawness, in its honesty, and yet it's the very thing that draws Kayden closer. He understands the desire to be seen, to be understood without judgment, and he can't help but wonder if he's willing to be that person for Gareth. But as the attraction grows, so does the risk. Kayden has always kept his distance, prided himself on the control he's held over his emotions and relationships. But now, with Gareth, the temptation to let go feels impossible to resist. The more they engage, the more Kayden feels the boundaries between them dissolve, and the closer he comes to crossing a line he knows he can't uncross. There's a part of him that wants to dive into this chaos with Gareth. But there's another part that fears the consequences of giving in. Every glance, every conversation with Gareth brings them closer to that breaking point, and Kayden knows that once they step over it, everything will change. There's no going back, no undoing the connection they've formed. And yet, in the back of his mind, Kayden wonders if this is the moment he's been waiting for, the moment where he finally lets go of control and allows himself to fall into the wild unknown that Gareth represents. Chapter 30. Gareth. Gareth feels as though everything he's been avoiding, everything he's been running from, is closing in on him. The mask he's worn for so long is barely holding up, the cracks widening with every passing second in Kayden's presence. He's always been able to control his world, keep it neat and orderly, but now that sense of control feels distant, like something he's losing. With Kayden, there's no hiding. Every glance, every shared moment between them pulls him deeper into the reality he's tried to avoid for so long. He can't stop thinking about the way Kayden looks at him like he can see everything. All the parts of Gareth he's hidden away, the parts of himself he's never allowed to face, are exposed in Kayden's gaze. It's unsettling, but it's also freeing in a way he never expected. There's no pretense, no game. For the first time, Gareth feels like someone truly sees him, not as a student or a son, but as who he really is. And that realization sends a wave of vulnerability over him, a flood of emotions he isn't sure how to handle. The struggle inside him grows. Every instinct tells him to run, to retreat into the life he's always known. But the pull toward Kayden is too strong, too compelling to ignore. Gareth realizes that this isn't just about desire anymore. It's about something deeper, something raw. Kayden isn't just another challenge. He's someone who is forcing Gareth to confront the truth about himself, about the parts he's kept buried, and it's both terrifying and intoxicating. Gareth's fear of losing everything still lingers in the back of his mind, but it's no longer enough to hold him back. The more he thinks about it, the more he realizes that the life he's been clinging to, the mask he's so carefully maintained, has never truly been his. It's been a performance for others, and the idea of letting it all go for something real, something unfiltered, feels like the only truth left to follow. He stands on the edge, caught between fear and the need to step into the unknown. Kayden's presence pulls him closer, and Gareth knows that once he crosses this line, there's no going back. But for the first time, he wonders if that's exactly what he needs. The mask is slipping, the walls are coming down, and the person he's been hiding from, even from himself, is finally ready to step into the light. Chapter 31. Gareth. Gareth feels a raw urgency in the air around him, each breath he takes weighed down with the undeniable pull toward Kayden. It's not just attraction anymore. It's a magnetic force, a connection that has unraveled everything he once believed about control, about who he is. He's spent so much of his life running from his desires, burying the parts of himself that don't fit into the image he's built. And now they're rising to the surface. Kayden has become the mirror, the reflection that forces Gareth to confront the parts of him he's always kept hidden. And that confrontation is both terrifying and liberating. Every interaction with Kayden feels more intense now, more laden with meaning. When their eyes meet, it's like a current running between them, something unspoken but felt deeply in every muscle, every breath. Gareth can't pretend anymore that this is just about control or about the life he's expected to lead. This is real, raw, and it's something he's starting to crave more than anything else. But the more he leans into it, the more he feels the weight of the consequences. The fear of losing everything, his family's trust, his reputation, the life he's worked so hard to create, still lingers, but it no longer feels like a valid reason to hold back. What he feels with Kayden is not just a fleeting attraction, it's a need, a hunger to be seen fully, to be understood in a way that no one else has ever bothered to see him. And it scares him, but in the deepest part of himself, Gareth knows that this is the truth he's been running from. As the days pass, Gareth finds it harder to control his thoughts, his actions. Kayden has become a constant presence in his life, and with every passing moment, he feels the pull to step closer, to cross that line and give in to the rawness between them. The mask is slipping, and he knows that once he lets it fall completely, there's no going back. But the temptation to finally embrace what's been building between them is too strong to resist. Gareth is no longer playing by the rules he's spent so long following. The life he's built, the identity he's so carefully maintained, is starting to feel like a cage. And Kayden is the key. The question isn't whether he will cross this line. It's how far he is willing to go, and what he's willing to lose in the process. But deep down, Gareth realizes that losing everything may be the price of finally being free. Chapter 32. Kayden. Kayden can feel the shift in the air, the quiet tension that grows with every passing day. He has always been in control, always maintained a distance, but with Gareth, that distance is becoming impossible to keep. There's a quiet but undeniable pull between them, one that Kayden has tried to ignore, but now he knows it's no longer something he can pretend doesn't exist. Every time he looks at Gareth, it's as though he sees right through him, sees the parts of him that Gareth has carefully hidden away. For Kayden, control has always been the key. It's what has kept him safe, what has kept him distant from the chaos of others. But with Gareth, there's a shift in that dynamic. The walls he's built around himself are starting to crack. Gareth isn't just a student anymore. He's become a mirror to Kayden's own darkness, a reflection of desires and impulses Kayden has never fully allowed himself to embrace. The connection between them feels inevitable now. Too powerful. Too raw to be ignored. What strikes Kayden the most is how Gareth seems to want the same thing. There's an undeniable hunger in him, one that mirrors Kayden's own need for something real, something untamed. It's dangerous, yes, but Kayden can't deny that it's also the most honest thing he's felt in years. Every time Gareth looks at him, it's as though he's daring Kayden to step closer, to let go of the distance that has always kept them apart. And every time Kayden feels that pull, he wonders how long he can resist it. But as much as he feels that attraction, as much as he feels the undeniable connection, Kayden knows the risks. Once they step over this line, there's no turning back. Their relationship will never be the same, and the consequences of crossing this boundary could be devastating for both of them. Yet, the more he tries to hold back, the more he finds himself drawn to the idea of what might lie on the other side of that line, of finally giving in to the raw, unfiltered connection that is growing between them. Kayden has always kept his emotions in check, always maintained control over every aspect of his life. But with Gareth, that control feels less like power and more like a cage. Every moment they share, every word spoken, pushes him closer to the edge. The question now is not whether he will cross that line, it's when. And when that moment comes, neither of them will be prepared for what happens next. Chapter 33. Kayden. Kayden's resolve is beginning to crumble. He's always been a man who thrives on control, whether in his work, his personal life, or even his emotions. But with Gareth, that control is slipping through his fingers. Every interaction feels like a push and pull, a constant dance around the boundaries they've set for each other. And the more time they spend together, the more Kayden realizes that those boundaries are no longer enough to keep them apart. It's not just the attraction anymore. It's something deeper. Gareth has a way of seeing him, of challenging him, that no one else has ever done before. Kayden finds himself watching Gareth more closely, studying the subtle ways he reacts, the way his eyes linger just a second longer than necessary. Gareth doesn't speak it, but Kayden can feel the unspoken desire between them, the hunger that both of them are trying to contain. It's a dangerous game, but the temptation to cross that line is becoming overwhelming. What strikes Kayden most is how much he wants it. He has spent years keeping people at a distance, keeping his desires controlled and buried, but with Gareth, there's no such distance. The young man's vulnerability, his rawness, is something Kayden finds impossible to resist. He sees the same darkness in Gareth that lives within him, and it draws him in with an intensity that's both terrifying and exhilarating. Every time they're near each other, Kayden feels the urge to close the distance, to step into the space that's growing between them. But fear holds him back. The fear of losing control. The fear of what might happen if they finally give in. It's not just about crossing lines anymore. It's about stepping into a world where neither of them can predict the consequences. Kayden knows that once they take that step, their lives will never be the same. Still, despite the fear, despite the risk, Kayden knows he's on the edge of something real, something that neither of them has ever experienced before. He feels the draw to Gareth, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. There's a connection between them that feels deeper than anything Kayden has ever known. And though it scares him, he can't shake the feeling that giving in, letting go of control, might just be the only way to truly be free. Chapter 34. Gareth. Gareth's thoughts have become consumed by Kayden in ways he can't ignore. The restraint he's been trying to hold on to feels more like a prison now, each day adding more weight to the walls he's built around himself. Every moment spent near Kayden pulls him deeper into the space where control is slipping, where the life he's been leading feels more like a facade than ever before. What started as curiosity has morphed into something more powerful, more dangerous, something that no longer allows him to pretend he can walk away. Every time their eyes meet, Gareth feels a surge of something he's never allowed himself to feel. Vulnerable, exposed, and strangely free. Kayden doesn't look at him like others do. He doesn't see the perfect student or the heir to a legacy. He sees the person Gareth has worked so hard to keep hidden, the person who craves something more, something real. The realization is unsettling. Gareth doesn't know how to fight it anymore, and the more he tries, the more he feels himself giving in. There's a part of him that wants to pull away, that wants to retreat into the safety of the mask he's worn for so long. But the more he spends time with Kayden, the more he realizes that the mask isn't who he truly is. It's a cage that Kayden is slowly, steadily dismantling. The hunger for something real, something raw, grows stronger with every passing second. Gareth can feel it in the air, the electric tension between them that seems to crackle louder with each breath. He knows the stakes now. He knows that crossing the line with Kayden means losing the life he's built, losing the comfort of being someone else's idea of perfect. The fear of that loss grips him. But there's another, stronger part of him that feels the pull towards something truer, something deeper. And the closer he gets to Kayden, the more he begins to understand that losing it all might be the only way to finally be free. Gareth's struggle isn't just about desire anymore, it's about freedom. The choice between holding on to everything he knows and stepping into a world where nothing is certain, where he can finally drop the act and face the truth of who he really is. And as the tension between him and Kayden mounts, Gareth knows that the moment of truth is fast approaching. He doesn't know what will happen when they cross that line, but for the first time, he's willing to find out. Chapter 35. Gareth. Gareth stands at the edge, caught between the life he's always known and the raw, uncharted territory that stretches before him. The mask he's worn for so long feels like a weight now, one he can no longer keep in place. Every interaction with Kayden has chipped away at it, pulling him closer to a reality he isn't sure he's ready for, but knows he can no longer avoid. The attraction, the pull between them, has gone far beyond desire. It's become a test of everything he's built, everything he thought he was. Every glance from Kayden, every moment spent together, leaves Gareth feeling exposed in ways he hasn't felt before. There's no place to hide now. Kayden has seen him in ways no one ever has, and instead of turning away, he has drawn Gareth closer. It's a dangerous game, but for the first time, Gareth is starting to believe that the risk of losing everything might be worth the chance of finally stepping into the truth of who he really is. The fear still lurks in the back of his mind. The fear of losing the life he's built, the respect, the perfect image, the role he's been playing for everyone else. But with every passing moment, that fear feels less real, less important. The life he's been living is no longer enough. What he feels with Kayden is real, raw, and the pull between them is something that can't be ignored any longer. Gareth knows that once he crosses this line, there's no turning back. The more he thinks about it, the more he realizes that this isn't just about passion. It's about freedom. Freedom from the mask, freedom from the expectations, from the person he's always pretended to be. Kayden has been the key to that freedom, pulling him out of the cage he's built for himself, And now, Gareth is standing on the threshold of something new, something terrifying. The world he's known will crumble, and he's ready to watch it fall. Gareth takes a step forward, not because he's certain of what will happen next, but because he can't live in the shadows anymore. He's ready to let go. The question now isn't whether he will cross the line. It's when, and what happens when the truth finally comes to light. Chapter 37. Gareth. Gareth stands at the edge, a place where his fear and desire meet, tangled together in a mess he can no longer untangle. With each passing moment, the space between him and Kayden grows narrower. The life he's clung to for so long, the mask of perfection, the role of the golden heir, is slipping further out of his grasp. He feels it more sharply now, the weight of his own truth pressing against the walls he's built. Kayden's presence has cracked those walls open, and the truth Gareth has kept hidden is rising to the surface, relentless and untamed. Every time he looks at Kayden, he feels both terrified and exhilarated. There's no more pretending. What was once a controlled, calculated performance has now become an undeniable reality. The connection between them is no longer something Gareth can ignore. It's the force that drives him, that makes him question everything he's ever known about himself. It's the pull toward something raw, something real, and it scares him more than he's ever been scared before. But with that fear comes a strange kind of freedom. For the first time, Gareth is starting to feel what it's like to be truly seen, to be understood without the need for the mask he's always worn. Kayden doesn't see the heir, the perfect student. Kayden sees the parts of him that Gareth has tried to hide from everyone, including himself. And instead of pulling away, Kayden pulls him closer, invites him to step into a world where nothing is controlled, where everything is exposed. Gareth doesn't know what will happen when he lets go. He doesn't know if he's ready to lose everything he's worked for, the life, the reputation, the safety of his carefully crafted world. But he knows that the alternative is to remain trapped, to stay hidden behind the mask and the role that no longer fit him. Kayden has shown him the way out, but now it's up to Gareth to decide if he's willing to take that step. The pull toward Kayden is undeniable. It's a hunger that runs deeper than anything he's felt before. And yet, as much as he wants to cross that line, to step into the unknown, the fear of losing himself still clings to him. But as he watches Kayden, as he feels the weight of everything they've shared, Gareth realizes that the true loss would be in never allowing himself to truly live. The mask is slipping, the walls are coming down, and for the first time, Gareth is ready to step into the chaos and the freedom that Kayden represents. Chapter 38. Kayden. Kayden feels the shift in Gareth, sharp and undeniable. The control Gareth once held so firmly is slipping, and Kayden watches it unravel with a mixture of anticipation and something darker, something that stirs deep inside him. He's been careful, so careful, to keep his distance, to maintain the boundaries that have always defined his relationships. But with Gareth, the lines are becoming blurred. The more he watches, the more he sees the cracks in the young man's facade, the more he feels himself drawn into a place he's never allowed himself to go. There's a rawness in Gareth now, a vulnerability that speaks to something deeper in Kayden. It's not just the attraction, though, that is undeniable. It's the recognition that they are both dancing around the same truths, both holding parts of themselves back that are too dangerous to expose. Kayden feels it when they are together, when their eyes meet, when the silence between them stretches just a little too long. It's the unspoken understanding that they are both holding back, playing a game of restraint But that game is wearing thin. Kayden knows what it's like to hide, to keep the parts of yourself that are too dangerous, too raw, locked away behind walls of control. He's spent his entire life managing that control, keeping his emotions in check, making sure that no one gets close enough to see what lies beneath. But with Gareth, it's different. Every time their paths cross, every time their gazes lock, that wall seems to crumble a little more. He can see the hunger in Gareth's eyes, the same hunger he's felt, the same pull toward something real, something unfiltered. And Kayden knows it's only a matter of time before they both give in. But that thought brings a wave of fear over Kayden. He knows that once they cross this line, there's no going back. He's seen the destruction that comes from giving in to desire, from allowing yourself to be seen. And yet, with Gareth, he wonders if the risk is worth it. There's something about him, something raw, something real, that calls to Kayden in a way he hasn't experienced before. It's terrifying, but it's also the most honest thing he's felt in years. The closer they get, the harder it becomes to maintain the distance. Kayden feels the pull to step forward, to close the gap between them, to let himself give in to the connection that's growing between them. But the fear of losing control, of giving too much of himself away, still lingers. He knows that once this line is crossed, they will both be exposed, laid bare in a way they've never been before. And Kayden wonders, if he lets go, if he allows himself to fall into this with Gareth, what happens to the man he's always been? Chapter 39. Gareth. Gareth stands on the precipice, feeling the weight of everything, every choice, every moment that's led him here, bearing down on him. The life he's carefully constructed, the mask he's worn for so long, feels like a distant memory. There's no denying it anymore. The man he's tried to keep hidden is breaking free, and it's both terrifying and liberating. The air around him feels electric, charged with the gravity of the moment. Every breath he takes is a step closer to something irreversible. Kayden has done something Gareth never thought possible. He has stripped away the layers, the walls that Gareth built to protect himself, and in doing so, has forced him to confront the parts of himself he has long buried. It's not just the pull of desire anymore, it's the push toward truth. What Gareth has wanted for so long, to be seen, truly seen, for who he is finally within reach. But it comes with a price he's not sure he's ready to pay. Every glance from Kayden, every word spoken between them, feels like it carries the weight of destiny. Their connection has grown from subtle glances to full-blown confrontation, and Gareth can no longer hide from it. The space between them has shrunk to a point of no return. Kayden doesn't look at him like the others do. He doesn't see the perfect student or the heir to a legacy. He sees the darkness, the hunger, the raw parts of Gareth that have been hidden beneath the surface for years, and instead of turning away, he embraces it. And that acceptance, that recognition, pulls Gareth closer in ways he can't quite explain. But with that closeness comes the fear of losing everything. Everything he's worked for, everything he's built, will vanish in an instant if he crosses that line. The thought of it shakes him, rattles the very core of who he is. He's always played it safe, always followed the rules until now. Now, the rules feel suffocating. The life he's led feels like a cage, and Kayden is the key to breaking free. But what comes after freedom? What happens when all the layers are stripped away and the truth is finally exposed? As the moment stretches between them, Gareth realizes the choice isn't about desire anymore. It's about identity. It's about shedding the mask and stepping into the unknown. The truth is that he's already made his decision. He's already given in small ways, every time their eyes meet, every time he feels the raw pull of Kayden's presence. The man he's been controlled, polished, perfect, is slipping away. What's left is someone who craves something real, something unfiltered. And yet, there's a part of him that still wants to resist. The fear is still there, whispering that this might be the end of everything he's known. But as he stands there, as he feels Kayden's gaze locking with his, Gareth knows that resisting is the true cost. It's not just the fear of losing the life he's built. It's the fear of never truly living. The pull between them is too strong to ignore, too raw to fight anymore. With one final breathless step, Gareth moves toward Kayden, crossing that line they've both been circling for so long. There's no more hiding, no more pretending. He lets the mask fall completely. And as their lips meet, it's not just a kiss, it's an acceptance of who they both are, the parts that have remained hidden, the darkness they've both carried and tried to bury. It's the first step into something new, something real. And with that first step, Gareth feels the weight of his past life fall away, knowing that this moment, this raw, unfiltered connection with Kayden, is everything he's ever wanted, and everything he's afraid to lose. The world feels different now, the air lighter, the tension gone. He doesn't know where this path will lead, but for the first time in his life, Gareth is ready to find out. Conclusion. The world feels different now, quieter, perhaps, but also freer. The chaos that once clouded Gareth's life, the constant balancing act between who he was and who he pretended to be, has finally settled into something unrecognizable yet comforting. The mask that once felt like a shield now feels like a distant memory. It has crumbled under the weight of truth, under the pull of something real, something raw. And for the first time, Gareth feels unburdened. The journey to this point has not been easy, but as he stands here, at the threshold of something new, he realizes that every step, every choice, has led him here into a life of authenticity. The fear of losing everything, the family, the reputation, the identity he built around the perfect heir, once held him back. But now, that fear has been replaced with a quiet sense of freedom. He's no longer bound by the expectations of others, or the self-imposed restrictions he placed on himself. He is, finally, free. Kayden has been the unexpected catalyst for this transformation, the one who saw beyond the carefully constructed walls of Gareth's life. At first, he was an enigma, someone who challenged everything Gareth thought he knew about control, about desire, about identity. But as time passed, Kayden became more than just a catalyst. He became the mirror that reflected the parts of Gareth he had long tried to avoid. And in doing so, Kayden showed him that those parts weren't weaknesses. They were pieces of the man he was always meant to be. In the quiet moments, when Gareth reflects on the journey they've taken together, he realizes that their connection was never just about the physical, the attraction that sparked between them from the beginning. It was about the raw, unfiltered truth that neither of them was ready to face, but both needed to. Together, they've peeled back the layers of their pasts, revealed the darker, more complicated parts of themselves, and in that exposure, they have found something that feels real, something that cannot be undone. There is still uncertainty in the future. The road ahead isn't clear, and challenges will undoubtedly arise. But for the first time, Gareth isn't afraid of that uncertainty. He isn't afraid to step into the unknown with Kayden by his side. They've both walked through shadows, carried burdens that seemed too heavy to bear. And yet, they've found something in each other that feels like a light in the darkness. Kayden, too, has changed. The man who once stood apart, detached from the world around him, now finds himself entangled in a connection that forces him to confront his own vulnerability. The power dynamics that once defined him are no longer enough. With Gareth, he has found something beyond control, something that exists in the raw, unspoken moments they share. There's an understanding between them now, a partnership that feels like the most honest thing either of them has ever experienced. Together, they've stepped into a world where masks no longer need to be worn. They've both shed the roles they played, the expectations they carried, and have finally embraced the parts of themselves that were always meant to be. It's a world where they can finally live, unburdened by fear, unchained from the past. And while there may be difficult days ahead, days filled with doubt or struggle, Gareth knows that they can face them together. The life they've built together is not one of perfection, but of honesty. It is not one of control, but of mutual respect and understanding. And for the first time, both Gareth and Kayden realize that the only truth worth living is the one they've created together. One where they no longer need to hide, need to pretend. It is a life where they are free to be themselves, fully, completely, and without fear. This has been the summary of Kiss the Villain Legacy of Gods by Rina, summarized by Cellwave Audio and narrated by Bill.